Resourceful Designer, episode 253, Identifying the Competition.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He misses driving a stick shift, and I don't blame him. They're so much fun. Here's Mark DeCote.
Yeah, I've had several stick shifts over the years, but I have to say the most fun one to drive was my blue and gray 1990 Chevy Cavalier Z24. That was a great car to drive. Although I'm sure it doesn't even come close to Wayne, my voiceover guy's vintage Mustang. Anyway, in this week's episode, I'm going to talk about what to do to help your clients figure out who their competition is. Because believe it or not, many of them don't know. I'm also going to share a resource that can help your clients capture the information they need from prospective clients. Now, what have I been up to? Well, I'm dealing with, I was going to say an irate client, but let's just say an unsatisfied client. I launched a website for a client this week, and this is a website. It had been going on for many months, waiting for content and all sorts of stuff. Anyways, there's a lot of delays. So finally this week, the client said, I'm ready to launch the website, just make these couple of changes to it. And I knew from experience, I wasn't going to launch it without her final approval. So I made those changes, and then I sent her a message saying, okay, I've made the changes. As far as I know, the website's ready to go. Please look it over. And I mentioned, please check it on various platforms using different browsers to make sure everything is okay before we launch. Well, it took a couple of days for her to get back to me, and she sent me a message saying everything was fine. Please go ahead and launch the website. So I launched the website, sent her a congratulation email. Your site is now live for people to see, and so forth and so forth. Well, 2 days later, I get an angry email from the client telling me that the mobile version of the website looks awful, in their words. Now, I had already built it for mobile, and I didn't think it looked bad at all, but there were certain things about it that they did not like, and she said that many people are complaining about stuff and that. And I asked her, I says, well, didn't you check it on mobile when I asked you to check it on various platforms and that? No, all she did was look on her desktop computer, looked at it. She liked the way it looked, so she approved it. She never checked it anywhere else. She never looked at it on her phone, on her, she has an iPad. She never looked at it on her iPad or anything. So she sent me this big, long, angry email saying that she was expecting better of me and so forth and so forth. And yeah, I'm not going to worry about that. I don't get hard feelings over that sort of thing. But I just told her that technically it was her responsibility. I had told her to check it on all platforms, and as far as I was concerned, it looked good on mobile. But there was a few things. Some of the icons she thought were a little bit too big, and some other things she thought were too small. So it was an easy fix. It took me about 20 minutes to make all the corrections she wanted, and now she's happy with the site. It's just one of those things where, you expect clients to do something, especially when you give them explicit instructions. I don't know, maybe I failed because I didn't tell her to check it on mobile. I did say, make sure you check it on all platforms. And maybe that was using a little bit of insider jargon. I'm not sure. But I'll know better next time. Instead of saying check it on all platforms, I'll tell the next client to make sure to check it on both desktop and mobile to make sure everything is to their liking. That's just the way it is. But the website is launched, and now she's happy with everything once again. So that's just one of the things I've been up to. I've also been working on a logo for a friend of mine. He has a boat. The boats are out of the water right now. They're going to be going into water. Spring is going to be here soon, and the boats are going to be going back in the water. And he wanted a logo to put on the back of his boat with the name of his boat. And he's going to have that installed before it goes back in the water. So I'm working on that for him. That's just a freebie I'm doing for a friend. And I've been doing a lot of strategy sessions this week. I had several clients call me up, not necessarily for design work. They just wanted some strategy sessions to talk about marketing and their design and what sort of direction they can take. And who knows, I'm hoping that it does turn into work down the road. But for now, they paid me for a strategy session. So I made money that way. And who knows, if they like the idea or they decide to pursue anything, they may hire me down the road. They have that opportunity. So that's just a little bit of what I've been up to this week. Now, of course, I've been doing a lot in the Resourceful Designer community. We've had several new members join over the past couple of weeks. So getting to know them, as well as just continued communication with all the existing members. It's really nice to get to know these people, to know their businesses, to know how they work, to know how they think. It really makes it so much easier to communicate with them, to offer advice, and to accept advice from them as well. And that's what I love about the intimacy of this community. It's still a small group of people that are just in there because they want their business to grow and they want fellow peers in order to help them and advise them and support them in doing so. And I know the members keep telling me over and over how much they enjoy this investment they've done in their business. Now, if you are growing your business and you need some people, you want some help, you want some advice, some accountability partners and all of that, then the Resourceful Designer community is for you. Check it out. Join for a month and see if it's something you want to keep up with. Just visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community and sign up today. And now this week's resource of the week. And this week's resource is Gravity Forms. Now, Gravity Forms is a WordPress plugin, and I've been using it for years. In fact, on almost every website I put together, I use Gravity Forms to create the form on the contact page. And what I love about Gravity Forms is you can make very simple forms, but you can also make very complex forms. Just this week, I was working on a website for a client, and they had a contact form that they wanted, but they wanted it to change depending on certain things that the client or the person filling out the form answered. For example, if the person answered that they were female or identified as female, then there were certain things that would show up on the form. And if they identified as male, then there were certain things would appear on the form. And if they refused to answer their gender, then they would show different things on the form. And that is so easy to accomplish with conditional logic using Gravity Forms. It's very simple toggle. You just say, if somebody selects this, then show this. There's no coding or anything involved. Now, I've been using this feature for years now. I have a website for a golf course that I built, and their membership form is done through Gravity Forms. And it's little things like if they're signing up as a couple, then there's 2 spots to enter names, one for the one spouse and one for the second spouse. But if they're signing up as an individual, it only shows one place to enter a name. There's no need for the spouse's name if they're signing up as an individual. If they sign up as a VIP member, they get all the bells and whistles, all the options. So there's no sense having a section of the form that asks them if they want to add on these features because it's part of their VIP package. But if they sign up for a standard package, then part of the form appears where they can ask for these other options. Like, do you want a golf cart included with your membership? Well, they can check it off and it will add it on to the price. So all of this is very easily accomplished with Gravity Forms. And it's so simple. You just build the form, it creates a shortcode, and you drop the shortcode anywhere you want on your WordPress website. So as I said, I've been using Gravity Forms for years, creating all sorts of stuff for myself, for clients, and so forth. And I think you would really benefit. If you build WordPress websites, I think you would really benefit from using this plugin. Now, it is a premium plugin. You do have to buy it, but it is well worth the price, and I think it pays for itself very easily. If you want to know more, I do have an affiliate link for Gravity Forms. Just visit resourcefuldesigner.com/gravityforms. And now, identifying the competition. Have you ever heard the term the curse of knowledge? According to Wikipedia, the curse of knowledge is a cognitive bias that occurs when an individual communicating with another individual or individuals unknowingly assumes that the others have the background to understand what they're saying. You see this a lot with teachers, where a teacher, and I'm not just talking school teacher, but anybody who's teaching something, where the teacher is so familiar with the subject that they're teaching that they forget that the person or people that they're teaching it to don't have that same background and therefore might not understand their instructions. In case you don't know, I do another podcast besides this. It's a TV show fan podcast for the Amazon series The Expanse. And in case you're curious, the podcast is called The Expanse Podcast, Tales from the Rocinante. You can check it out anywhere you listen to podcasts or just visit my other website, solotalkmedia.com. If you're into the Expanse TV show, I'd love to have you listen to the podcast. But because I do a podcast about that TV show, I'm very invested in the series. I watch every episode multiple times. I know every actor by name. I read articles, I watch interviews, and all sorts of stuff about that show. But not everyone that listens to my podcasts is as invested as I am. Not everybody is what you would call an uber fan or super fan. So I have to be careful whenever I refer to things on the show, specifically actors. Instead of making a comment like, wow, Dominic Tipper did an amazing job in such and such a scene on this episode, I have to make sure to say Dominic Tipper, who plays Naomi, did an amazing job in such and such scene, because not everybody will know that Dominic Tipper plays Naomi. If I just said Dominic Tipper, that would be kind of the curse of knowledge, where I just presume that everybody knows who that is. But no, most people that watch a TV show don't know the names of the actors playing the roles that they're watching. The curse of knowledge is kind of like if I gave a presentation to a group of web designers and said something like, oh, you can achieve this result quite easily with just some simple CSS. In that case, I would be making the false assumption that everyone that I'm presenting to knows CSS, where in fact, some of the web designers may design websites using Wix or Squarespace or GoDaddy Web Builder or even Webflow, which are all platforms where knowledge of CSS is not necessary. So my presuming that all web designers I'm talking to know CSS would be considered the curse of knowledge. So why am I talking about curse of knowledge? It's because as designers, whether you're a graphic designer or a web designer or both, we know things that we often take for granted that our clients know as well. And that's especially true when it comes to today's topic, which is identifying the competition. But let me tell you, many, if not the majority of clients, don't have the background and knowledge that we do, and therefore fail in their competition identification. Case in point, for the past couple of years now, I've been on a grant panel committee here in my local area. Every year, our local business enterprise center receives government funding to be used to help new businesses start and get off the ground. They do this by offering them grants that they can use any way they see fit to grow their business. Now, part of the grant process is writing a business plan, if they don't already have one, as well as putting together a financial forecast for the next 3 years. How much money they're spending on starting the business, and how they expect their forecast for financials for the next 3 years. And once they have these two items completed, then each grant applicant must present in front of a panel of judges who will ultimately determine if they should get the money or not. And that's where I come in. For the past couple of years, I've been part of one of those panels. So I get to mark them on a certain criteria, and at the end, give my recommendation on whether or not I think they deserve the grant money. Now, before each presentation, I'm provided with a copy of their business plan and their financial forecast to look over. And then after the presentation, I can ask them any question I want about what they said or what I read in their material that they provided me. Now, I'm going to be honest, I kind of just glance over the financial forecasts. The panel that I'm part of includes both a financial advisor as well as an accountant, and both of them are much more qualified at looking over the, forecasted numbers and all that than I am. So I do look at them, but the only part I look at it is there's one section of the forecast where it talks about how much money each one is assigning to their marketing and their website. So that's the only thing I look up. I flip through to that page, see how much money they're allocating to that, and then make a note on my own private sheet to either talk about it or not worry about it whenever the presentation comes. Now, on a side note here, most of the presentations that I've sat through have drastically under budgeted their marketing and their website. I am completely amazed at how many of these businesses don't put any money aside for either. But that's a topic for another day. What I do read over before I see their presentations is their business plan. And I do that in order to get a feel for what it is that they plan on doing with their business, what they plan on doing for marketing, and who they are going to be marketing to. I also look at things like, how knowledgeable they are in what it is that they're doing. What's their expertise? What's their background? What qualifies them to start this business? And these are all good indicators on whether or not they have a chance for success. Now, one section of their business plan is a SWOT analysis. Now, I talked about running a SWOT analysis for your own design business way back in episode 202 of the podcast. Now, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, I'm not going to go into each of those. If you want to know more about it, go back and listen to episode 202 of the podcast. You can get to it by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 202. But I do want to mention that under the threat part of the SWOT analysis is where people identify their competition. And let me tell you, after sitting through dozens of these grant panel presentations, I can tell you that most startups don't know who their competition is. Now, don't get me wrong, some of them do a good job, but on average, the bulk of them don't. Where I see most of them failing is that they don't realize that every business out there has two types of competition. They have direct competition, meaning the competition that sells or provides the same or at least a very similar product or service that they do. That would be, for example, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's. All these places sell hamburgers. They're very similar. It might not be the exact same hamburger, but they're all fast food and they all sell hamburgers. So they're direct competition. But there's also indirect competition, meaning those who might not sell or provide a similar product or service to them, but are still competing for the same target market. So arguably, Taco Bell doesn't sell hamburgers. So they're not a direct competition to McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's. However, they're in the fast food market, and when somebody's trying to decide what to eat, they are an option, so they are an indirect competition. Now, of course, those are using big brands, but you get the idea. And it's this second one, the indirect competition, where most people fall short. And that's why I brought up the curse of knowledge earlier. I've been in the design field long enough, and I've dealt with enough clients over the years that it's become second nature for me to not just think of direct competition, but of the indirect ones as well. As soon as somebody tells me what their industry is, in my mind, I start thinking of, okay, who are their competitors that I know of, and what are their indirect competitors that I should look into? Let me give you an example. One of the presentations I sat through was for a couple who were in the process of opening up an escape room. Now, for those of you who don't know what an escape room is, it's an entertainment venue where you and a group of friends go and are locked in a room, or sometimes it's a group of rooms, and you have a deadline, a certain amount of time, to figure out puzzles and clues in order to get out of the room. So you're up against the clock as you all work together to decipher these clues and figure out your surroundings in order to get out. And you win by getting out before the time runs out. Now, if you've never done an escape room before, you should really give it a try. They are a lot of fun. Anyway, this couple was in the process of opening up a new business, which would have been escape rooms. They had already leased a building and they had already started construction. They were applying for the grant to help them cover some of the costs of building supplies, which is a great reason to apply for the grant. Now, I noticed something while I was reading their business plan, and I was hoping that they would clarify it during their presentation. But instead, they excitedly made the exact same point that they had in their plan. They said that they were sure they were going to succeed because escape rooms are becoming more and more popular, which is true. And they went on to say they have no local competition. They said that the closest escape room is over 100 kilometers away. And they stressed this idea. They had no competition in the area because the closest escape room was over 100 kilometers away, which is true. There are no other escape rooms in this area. And they were very proud of the fact. So after their presentation, I called them out on this. I pointed out that they mentioned that their direct competition was over 100 kilometers away. And they both smiled and nodded at me. But then I asked them, what about their indirect competition? And the response I got was, what do you mean? So I asked them if they've done an analysis on their local indirect competition. And I gave them examples. I said, just off the top of my head, I can think that the local cinema, there's a couple of theaters where they put on plays on a regular basis. What about dance clubs? What about the bars, the local miniature golf course, and other places like that? And the two of them looked at me confused. And one of them said, well, we're not competing with those places. Now, at this point in the presentation, the accountant and the financial advisor that were sitting around the table with me, we all kind of glanced and looked at each other with a surprised, incredulous look. And I turned back to them and I said, how are you not competing with them? You're starting an entertainment business. What you're doing is offering a fun outing for groups of people, of friends, of family that lasts anywhere between 1 to 2 hours. So does every other venture that I mentioned. When a group of friends are trying to figure out, what are we going to do this Friday? You better believe that you, as an escape room, are competing with all these other places, and probably many more that I didn't mention, for that group's attention. One person in the group might want to go see a movie. Another in the group might want to spend some time outside at the mini golf. Another might suggest that they go to one of the clubs that has a live band playing. So you better believe that you are competing with every other option that's on the table that might prevent someone from deciding to use your escape room as their entertainment of choice. And they told me they had never thought of it that way. And that was just one of the grant applicants. There were many more. I remember a massage therapist who failed to see that she was not just competing with other fellow massage therapists, but she was also competing against chiropractors, acupuncturists, physiotherapists. Not to mention, she gives massages, so she's also competing with those electric neck and back massagers that you can pick up at Walmart or one of those as seen on TV stores where you can pick up the things you see in infomercials. She never thought that she was competing with those. And when she said so, I said, people are going to think, are they going to spend $80 to go have a massage by you? Or can they spend $80 to get one of these machines and get multiple massages at home? They are a form of competition, but she didn't see that. There was another one, and this one just really got me. I didn't understand it. This guy was a craft brewer looking for a grant, and he thought his only competition was other craft brewers. He completely failed to realize that he's making beer, and therefore he's competing with every big beer label on the market, not just the small craft brewers. In his mind, when somebody went out to get a beer, if they're looking for a craft beer, the only other things he was competing with was other craft beers. But that's not the case. And I explained it to him. I mean, I don't drink myself, but if somebody's going out to the beer store, in Ontario here, there's an actual store called the beer store. When somebody goes to the beer store, even if they're looking for a craft brew, they're seeing all the other big name brands as well. And you don't know. They may decide, oh, well, you know what? Instead of buying this 6-pack of craft brew here, maybe I'll pick up a 12-pack of this other one because it ends up being the same price and I get more for my money. Well, he did not see that. Now, what I'm getting at here is, as a designer, as a problem solver, as we like to call ourselves, our job is to not only design amazing things for our clients, but to also help them identify their shortcomings. And that means making sure that your clients understand not only who their direct competition is, because most of them can figure that out, but more importantly, who their indirect competition is. In that one case, if you were the designer You wouldn't just be designing marketing material in the hopes that someone will pick that client's escape room over another escape room. You'd be designing marketing material trying to persuade people to choose your client's escape room over any other entertainment that they could go to instead. And that's where the difference lies. Now, I've been talking about identifying competition, but the same principle applies to identifying target markets. There are direct target markets, and then there are indirect target markets. And even when it comes to target markets, some clients don't know who they're targeting. Several years ago, I was hired to design a logo for a client who was starting a science kit subscription box. They were putting together a monthly subscription box filled with fun science facts and experiments for kids aged 5 to 12. So anybody who signed up would get once a month a box that would cover a certain theme. Maybe one month it would be all about bugs, another month it would be about fossils, another month about plants. And there would be experiments that kids aged 5 to 12 can go out and do, explore, and have fun learning science. They hired me to design the logo, the website, brochure, and some other stuff. And when I finally received the copy that they provided for the brochure and the website, I immediately questioned them on the material they provided to me. When I asked my client who they were targeting, they told me that their target market is young boys and girls between the ages of 5 and 12 who enjoy doing things like learning about bugs or digging through dirt and that. Any kid who wanted to learn about science. And I just shook my head. The client had completely missed the point. I had to explain to them that their box may be geared towards 5 to 12-year-olds, but their target market was actually the parents of the 5 to 12-year-olds. Not the kids themselves. The kids are not going to fork over the money to buy a subscription box. It's the parents that they have to market to convince them that buying this for their kids is a good idea. And that meant changing the marketing message from, do you want to have fun doing this stuff, to, do you have a kid who would enjoy this? Experiments that are so easy that the kids can do them on their own, but also so fun that you as the parent are going to want to do them with them. It completely changed the marketing message because parents are their primary target market. Now, they also have a secondary target market that they can go after, and that's grandparents, aunts, family friends, anybody who may want to send a monthly gift to a young person in their lives. Through all their research on how to put together subscription boxes, what sort of science projects to put together, how big, how many, all this stuff, the client had failed to identify their actual target market. The same way that my previous examples had failed to identify their competition. What I'm trying to say here, and the actual point of today's podcast episode, is don't become a victim of the curse of knowledge. Don't assume that your clients have done the proper homework and that they've identified their competition or their target market for that matter. A few years ago, before I joined this grant panel, I thought that only a small percentage of new businesses got it wrong. But my time sitting through dozens of grant presentations has taught me that what I take for granted, that people just understand who their target market is or who their competition is not something most people think about. In fact, I'd say that less than 40% of businesses that I saw, the people presenting, the people starting businesses, truly understood who they were competing with. So take it upon yourself to educate your clients. Ask them who their target market is or who their competition is. And if they get it wrong, explain to them who they're actually working against or working towards. By doing this, you're going to show them your value to them, and they'll appreciate you so much the more for it. Help them identify their competition. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. Now, I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. If you have any comments to share, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 253 and leave me a comment for this episode. Before I go, I want to remind you that the Resourceful Designer community is thriving right now. We're having some great conversations, getting to know each other, helping each other grow and expand our businesses. And we would love to help you as well. If you're interested in knowing more about the community, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community. And don't forget this week's resource of the week, which is Gravity Forms. You build websites on WordPress, and you want a great plugin that allows you to create easy as well as very complex forms. And even though I say complex, they're actually very easy to build. Then I highly suggest you try out Gravity Forms. I've been using them for years, and I swear by them. Take a peek by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/gravityforms. So that's it for me. Until next time, I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your design business and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.